So today guys, I am at Harvey and Tom's place, Celtic Reptile and Amphibian. This is the official facility because Celtic's gone a lot bigger since the last time you saw it on my channel. And I'm here and Harvey and Tom are through the gates that I'm looking at. So let's go and see them. Hello lads.
Hi Joe, how are you?
Not too bad yourselves?
Long time no see, eh?
Here we go, it's like bloody Jurassic Park this.
Come on in.
Welcome to the UK's largest breeding facility for European species of reptile and amphibian. So with maintaining the security of the facility, both away from people and from other animals, is a big task.
Yep.
The most important of all is biosecurity, keeping noxious pathogens out of the facility. That's things like chytrid fungus, ophidiomycosis, ranavirus, etc, etc. So Joe, we're going to give a full disinfect of you grimy animal keeper before we go into the main park, and also we'll do the same before we arrive anyway on a normal day.
Okay, so first enclosure, what have we got in here?
So in here, it's our sort of dune system. You can imagine this on Formby, this sort of setup. So we've got sand lizards and natterjack toads. So Britain's rarest lizard and Britain's rarest toad. They live together, they cohab here peacefully. They absolutely love it. The sand dune always gets at a really nice temperature when the sun's on it, so it's a perfect environment for these species.
And do you have any plans for reintroductions with any of these then? Or?
So I mean, there's nothing lined up at the moment, but sand lizards and natterjack toads, as we know, are very low in numbers in the wild, so it would be great to get some more back into the wild, but obviously there's a lot of regulation and hoops that we have to jump through before.
Yeah, of course, because this isn't just some random shilly-shally, you've got some lizards, you're going to dump them outside, are you?
No,
Exactly.
no.
And the thing with natterjacks and sand lizards is there's already been some amazing reintroduction efforts that have taken place over the UK that have secured the species in their core strongholds. So that amazing work has really, well, kind of almost been done now, and that's where we step in to have a look at the more longer extinct species like, well, you'll see
what we're going to see in a moment, yeah.
Right,
so this enclosure, what has it been built from?
So it's been built from scratch really, nothing's pre-made. It's all wood, so there's a foundation at the bottom, a railway sleeper that we use as a foundation, and it's built up from there with rat-proof mesh so rats can't get in.
Now obviously there's birds coming in from above, you might have crows, kestrels going to take these things, and that's just
yeah,
got this
I mean
mesh.
it's just a bird netting that we've draped over, nothing too fancy. We don't really see birds about near the enclosures at all, but it's just that precaution just in case.
So this is the Esculapian aviary, would you call it?
Yeah, or snakery. So you can see that there's a female down there basking. she's actually grabbing onto the branches, which is
as snakes do.
So there you
wow,
go.
isn't she pretty?
She's absolutely gorgeous. She's a bit dirty and she's also not in the best of coloration because she is shedding, but as you can see, an absolutely stunning animal. People do call Esculapians just brown snakes, but I must disagree. You know, they're not brown at all. They've got this beautiful silver flecking on them and a lovely cream belly, and they can even have a quite vivid yellow collar like a grass snake.
Yep, I have seen that,
Yeah,
especially the juveniles have got quite a collar, haven't they?
And that's led to actually their confusion as grass snakes in Wales. So North Wales, for a while apparently, the babies that were discovered were thought to just be grass snakes. So
now just to restate for people, these snakes are not, well, arguably the consensus is that they're not native to Britain. Information may change our understanding of that. However, they're native to Europe, and that's why you've got them here, right?
So yeah, exactly. So one of the misconceptions about Celtic actually is that we only breed native species, and that's not true. We're European herpetological specialists, so we keep anything that's from Europe. The reason why we keep Esculapian snakes is because of the education value. They allow animals, you know, people to photograph, to video about about, you know, the snakes in the UK, of which they are now a firm fourth member, as it were. So and the other reason as well is because it depends where you draw the native baseline, really. They were here in the Hoxnean interglacial of the Pleistocene, which is about 400,000 years ago. Now, some rewilders like George Monbiot would class this as a native species then. Ecologists, modern ecologists wouldn't, but you know, it's on that side of the debate. Should it be reintroduced? On the current evidence, I would suggest not. I think the introduced populations are doing well enough, and if there was anything I would encourage, it would be some level of protection to those animals, because there's no laws stopping people going out and catching those animals and bringing them into captivity. However, evidence, as you know, Joe, does change, and these fossils that that prove native status are incredibly fragile and from a very small time period.
And especially with something like a snake, I mean, it sort of goes without saying. It's like a snake's rib isn't the most easily identifiable fossil. So,
and the other thing as well is that this snake species ranged at its full extent up into Denmark relatively recently. They went extinct in Denmark at 1910.
Wow.
So they were here, in Scandinavia until relatively recently. And usually, if a taxa existed in Scandinavia, the odds are that it existed in the UK. Now, that is not evidence that they are native to the UK, but it opens up the potential that we should be looking closely at snake fossils when we do find them.
We've got a turtle pond right in front of us here. There's 2 species in here. There's one right here. Caspian pond turtle, which usually are a bit bigger than the European pond turtles, and they tend to sit out on the beach or on the periphery of the pond a little bit more than the pond turtles.
You can see the pond turtles there on the log. That one there, that's directly above my finger, came to us from Norfolk, and it had been living in the wild in an area called Hickling Broad for potentially a very long time, and it was found with other pond turtles.
So the question sort of becomes, why were those here? Are they a native relic population, or?
Everyone knows every herp nerd knows the story of the pool frog, about this animal which was thought to be non-native and then turned out is native. However, I find it very unlikely that they've survived thousands of years, and especially through the Victorian era,
with
without
no detection or literature on them, anything.
Exactly, but that doesn't mean it's still incredibly fascinating that pond turtles are living and potentially breeding in the UK again. That's very fascinating.
It certainly is. Right, so we're in the lizard greenhouse, are we not?
Yes, we are. The lacerted glasshouse, as we call it when we want to be fancy.
So what have we got in here then? Let's start off here.
So Joe, the western green lizards that you got are actually from this group, and this is a French locale of western greens. We've got 3 females in here and 1 male, and they're amazing animals, do really well. So these were moved over maybe a couple of months ago, I think now, into this enclosure, and as you can see, lots of logs and rocks to hide under, as well as varied planting for different shade and that. Keeping them damp is important, so that's why getting moss under the logs when we place them in the enclosure is great, so they got those humid retreats. Lots of leaf litter as well to kickstart the microorganisms in there, so they clean up after them.
So it's again, as we said when the last time I visited, it's like natural bioactive. You
100%,
keep stuff outdoors, and that's basically
100%,
what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Now this enclosure as well, I will point out, lacertids are, when kept indoors, often given quite small spaces. So I've seen American keepers keep Timon lepidus, the European eyed lizard or isolated lizard, whatever you want to call it, they keep them in 40-gallon aquaria, which are 3 feet long, 1.5 foot front to back and 1.5 foot tall, which is really not very large at all, because these are highly active lizards. So these enclosures are, how big are they?
4 foot by 4 foot.
Yeah, so 4 foot by 4 foot is enormous compared to what lots of indoor keepers have got them in. But they do require it, and they make use of the space, do they not?
Exactly, yeah. I mean, all the animals will use pretty much everything, all perches and basking areas. You can see the females there, for instance, are tucked away in the shade. In here we've got a pair of western green lizards, and these are German locale. They're still the same subspecies, so that's Lacerta billionata billionata. However, we separate them because we want to breed as meaningful as possible, and that means adhering to locales to some extent. So we keep them separate, and we keep the eggs separate, label the eggs separate, so that when they go to new owners or come back into the groups, you know, we can give some integrity to the animals.
In terms of maintaining these lizards in outdoor enclosures, how difficult is it? How much work have you got on?
So with outdoor enclosures, there's a lot less work. There's virtually no cleaning out. There is feeding, however a lot of natural food makes its way into the enclosures. It's a bit different in greenhouses. First of all, temperature regulation. So this greenhouse is trying to match the Vendée of France, and that's a place I know fairly well. So in order to do that, we have vent openers which open when it gets above about 20 degrees. On top of that, we've taken out the back here up to about halfway of glass, and what that allows is a stream of air coming through and out through the doors at the back there, keeping the temperature, keeping a breeze through.
And obviously, as well as the temperature, that's important for the Lacertes, because we know that they are, in terms of the lungs, they can be quite susceptible to stagnant air and so on.
And most importantly as well in a greenhouse is moisture. So we need to water the enclosures on a hot day pretty much every day to maintain, well, even just the plants as well as the lizards.
So as well as the Lacertes, you've got something else in here, don't you?
Yeah, so we've got Hyla arborea, which are the European tree frog, and they live in a similar sort of region to all the Lacertes in here. We've got them in here just because they are quarantining and away from all other amphibians, and it's a nice safe place to keep them in with all lizards, because amphibians can't really spread disease to lizards.
Now these are special frogs, I'm told.
Yeah, so these are 100% pure tree frogs, so they haven't been interbred with other species and they're not hybrids, which means that they are completely fertile, and should any reintroduction need to happen, say this frog species becomes endangered in the future, then we've got a pure supply that can go to help regenerating populations.
And in addition to that, there is some talk, is there not, about introducing these to Britain as an extirpated native species?
Yeah, so there is talk about it, and there's a debate whether they're native or not. We're pretty certain that they were native, but it's still up in arms in terms of scientific proof. So we're just going to keep breeding them and see what happens in the future. And if they're deemed native, then who knows, they could be reintroduced.
Right everyone, so that pretty much concludes the tour of Celtic Reptile and Amphibian. Thanks very much Harvey and Tom for having me over.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been amazing.
Hopefully I'll come down here again at some time and see how much things have improved, but really this has been quite an impressive day, I reckon. Seen plenty of animals, and I just hope that you have all enjoyed it. But for today, I've been JTB Reptiles, teaching you how to follow nature's example, and I'll see all of you in my next video. Bye guys.
See ya.
See you later.